Dokie, it's time for us to talk about something else, and it's only about a month and a half away, so we've started to get into that mindset of thinking about how the rest of 2013 is going to play out, and one of the signature events or more significant things that happens during the summer in WWE is the Money in the Bank pay-per-view.
The poster was just released last week, so
Now we're starting to think about who the two Money in the Bank winners are going to be. And I've got a few names of people that I'm going to potentially throw out there. Mike's got a few names that he's going to throw out there. We'll talk about them a little bit. And then just kind of talk about our thoughts about the Money in the Bank, thoughts about what they do with the people that win it, etc. Now, who's the first name that you want to throw out as somebody you think could actually win Money in the Bank and why?
I'm going to go with Cody Rhodes. He was a good IC champ. He kind of lingered there in limbo for a while. He's getting featured on TV. Whenever he's put in a match with Randy Orton, he puts on a good show. And, I mean, most of the matches he has are good shows. So I think he's ready to be pushed up a little bit, and Money in the Bank's the way to go to do that for him.
He would seem to be one that kind of really stands out. I will go, one name that I think can be thrown out there is because of the spot that he's being put in. Now, you could say whether or not he might deserve a push. I'm kind of with you. I'm not sure if Curtis Axel deserves this push in that spot. But the fact is, they did give him this push, and they've put him in that spot. And as a result, you would look at Curtis Axel right now and seem to think that he is a strong, strong candidate to be in the mix to win one of the Money in the Bank matches. The only thing that concerns me about that with the recent history of the Money in the Bank winners losing matches and losing matches, if they're going to keep Axel winning, it almost wouldn't seem to fit with him winning Money in the Bank. But imagine him carrying around the Money in the Bank briefcase. Maybe Heyman's carrying it around with him. He's got a main event manager with him.
And the fact that he's already had the matches with Triple H and John Cena, they're already kind of pushing him in towards that main event. So winning the Money in the Bank briefcase would solidify him being in that main event picture.
Right, and it would be something where they wouldn't necessarily have to put him in that spot right away. Who would be another guy you'd think of?
Randy Orton. Orton hasn't been in that huge spot lately. He's just kind of been lingering. He's not really going after a belt. He doesn't really have a feud. I mean, he kind of does with Big Show, but not really. So it'd be a good time for him to win Money in the Bank. He hasn't won it, so
yeah. And if they turn him heel, do you think it makes him less or more likely to win Money in the Bank?
Oh, definitely more.
I give you that. I look at a guy like Damian Sandow, and I see somebody that has the ability to talk, that they've presented in an important way before, at least. He's getting on TV. He's usually losing matches now, so it would seem to be the perfect recipe to have a surprise Money in the Bank winner. So I look at Sandow as another guy that I think could potentially be in the mix. Somebody, if you asked 6-7 months ago who would be, he would be one of your favorites, and I still think there's a strong possibility for him. Anybody else?
I still think Wade Barrett's a candidate. I know they kind of had it in the back of their head last year to have him win, and then he got injured. But with the way that they're kind of presenting him now, it's like he's not that important. So maybe that would be, hey, look, Wade Barrett is important.
Same thing with The Miz.
Yeah.
When we talk about Money in the Bank, a lot of times we look at guys as baby faces. Maybe guys like The Miz and Sheamus would be another one. Those are two guys as baby faces that the WWE values, WWE really likes, and as a result, I don't think you can always have two heels win Money in the Bank every time. Now, last year you obviously had a babyface win it in John Cena, but in general you don't always, I think, want to have two heels win it. So as a result, you could see a guy like maybe The Miz, who's kind of started to linger down a little bit.
His stock has kind of been on the plummet.
But I don't think they necessarily want his stock to plummet, so I think this might be a way to make him matter again, and maybe if they wanted to flip him heel, this would be the avenue to do so. Same thing with the Sheamus. Sheamus is kind of starting to linger, and he's starting to not get a great reaction as a babyface all the time.
They're both guys that are victims of circumstance. They got pushed really fast, really high, and then there was no plan to keep them in that top upper level, and so they just kind of fluctuate in the middle of the card.
And you look at a guy like Sheamus in particular, they tried to turn him babyface, but instead of making him a different type of babyface, they made to try to make him like every other type of babyface, and that's part of the reason why the crowd has started to resent him a little bit. Anybody else? You think maybe like a Daniel Bryan or a Christian or Antonio Cesaro or anybody else?
I know what would be really entertaining for me is if Jack Swagger won it again. I want to spend 10 minutes watching him try to unhook that briefcase. And now he's got the hair down in his face, so that'll make it even better.
I suppose Jack Swagger, in theory, would be a candidate. What about CM Punk?
I could see it. It might be a way to get him back in that title picture really fast. I just don't think that he needs that briefcase, though.
Would they consider doing it with Daniel Bryan, you think? Especially if they're splitting him off from Kane?
If they do split up, hell no. Then, yeah, I could definitely see it.
Yeah, I think it's something you could see really play out potentially, where you'd have something happen where Daniel Bryan costs Kane at Money in the Bank, and then they have their big match at SummerSlam, whatever. I think that's a definite possibility. Now,
I'm going to throw out my oddball one.
Sure.
Kofi Kingston.
Coming with the shoulder problem?
I like Kofi Kingston.
Well, yeah, but he's out right now with the shoulder injury.
He's got time. John Cena gets hurt. He's back like the next week. Kofi Kingston take 3 weeks off to hang out with his baby. Heal his shoulder. He'll be back. He'll win Money in the Bank. He'll go on and win the WWE Championship.
Oh, God. You want to talk about guys with no characters at all. Kofi would be one of many. But when we look at Money in the Bank, there are lots of names, and you notice a lot of them are heels. We could also throw out there Dean Ambrose.
Right.
Maybe Bray Wyatt. You never know. I mean, stranger shit has happened. But you look at Money in the Bank. This was something that originally started off as a concept. It was a match that would kind of kick off WrestleMania with the Big Bang. Do you like the fact that it's become a pay-per-view on its own, that we have 2 Money in the Bank winners? Do you think that's good? Do you think that's bad?
I used to really enjoy it when the brands were more separated. But now that the brands are like pretty much mashed together, it doesn't really make sense. Because, I mean, they wasted it with John Cena last year. So all we had was Dolph, who was after the SmackDown belt, but he was always on Raw.
Yeah, and you look at Money in the Bank, and to me, I think WrestleMania over the past couple of years, not having that Money in the Bank match on there, I think it's actually affected that show, your biggest show of the year.
It has. The pace is off, and
because it to me, that Money in the Bank match was always that match that was first, second, or third on the card that really got you into the show, that got you emotionally invested. It's also a chance to showcase several guys where maybe you didn't have to worry about putting them in a bunch of individual or interconnected feuds because, hey, we'll put 6 or 8 guys in here, and then after this, maybe we'll break a couple of feuds off of this. I don't know if this necessarily needs to be its own standalone pay-per-view anymore. I just don't think
plus
so.
you had that in the back of your head after a Mania, like at a Mania, if the belt was the main event, then, oh, that guy could come out and cash out. I mean, it didn't usually happen, but you had that lingering in the back of your head. You're like, oh, well, the Money in the Bank winner could come out now.
Right, potentially. And I mean, that's, maybe this is something where you would see one of the Money in the Bank winners cash in that same night. It's just, I look at this gimmick now. I like the Money in the Bank concept. I'm just not sure that it needs to be its own pay-per-view. And, therein kind of lies the whole problem. And when we look at the Money in the Bank concept as a whole, sometimes it almost looks like they use the Money in the Bank as a lazy excuse to create a main eventer. But then in a lot of cases, they don't do the things necessary to elevate somebody's profile and star quality to make them a main eventer once they win Money in the
They're
Bank.
like, Dolph Ziggler was losing until he won Money in the Bank. Well, we shouldn't change things now. He's got to keep losing after he wins it.
Because we want to have somebody be champion where we want everybody to think that anybody could beat him.
Same story with Daniel Bryan.
I mean, it just doesn't make much sense.
And you think you'd want to build up the guy that's got your Money in the Bank briefcase, show that he's a threat, show that he's working towards his goal of cashing in.
And here's another question, too. Will we have either one of the 2 Money in the Bank winners this year actually cash in clean successfully?
It's a good question.
It is. And do you ever notice, just bringing up Money in the Bank from last year, you ever notice, and I give the WWE credit, they did stick something bad on John Cena, technically.
It never gets brought up.
That's the point I'm getting at. He was the first guy to ever lose the Money in the Bank opportunity. By hook or by crook, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is he wasn't successful. Again, it's almost never brought up. But at least they popped that cherry. Do you think with Money in the Bank that one of the 2 Money in the Bank winners will cash in that same night of the pay-per-view, like Kane did a couple of years ago?
I could see it, especially with Dolph being out hurt and stuff. If he's still not 100%, Why not cash it in and just get rid of that problem?
I would agree. It could happen. Doesn't mean it's likely to happen.
Or say Ryback beats Cena, and they're like, "Oh, people don't like this. We need to come up with something."
Right, exactly.
John Cena's winning Money in the Bank this year again.
We're going to avenge last year's mistake. So if you had to pick right now, pick your 2 people that you think are going to win Money in the Bank.
Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
Randy Orton.
I will go Curtis Axel, and I will go Damian Sandow. I think those are actually, compared to some of the other people, I think those are some of the stronger choices. There's going to probably be one of the 2 is going to be an oddball or screwball pick. But I think if you had, let's say, Curtis Axel and Randy Orton as an example, you'd have a legit main event guy that's been in that spot before, that wins Money in the Bank the first time, and if you've just recently turned Randy Orton heel, that could be something a little different from him, something that's very, very, very desperately needed.
I think it'd be interesting if they had Rhodes and Sandow win.
You could always bring back Mark Henry and have him win it as a babyface. So, there's all types of possibilities.
There's cheeseburgers in that briefcase.
There's going to be a 30-pound gray cat scurrying up that ladder. Come on, motherfucker. We going to the promised land. So we're just curious, something that we were talking about. We want to find out who you think is going to win Money in the Bank, who you think should win Money in the Bank, and whether or not you think that the Money in the Bank concept should stay a pay-per-view or it should go back to being that one match on the WrestleMania card. It was a good topic, I suppose. Yeah. We'll be back again for another one at some point.